episode, we're focusing on something called the leave-taking. And in art history, it describes this subject, which effectively is a moment in which Jesus is taking leave of his mother. This is a moment before he goes to face his trial and his arrest in Jerusalem. And it's a very emotional subject matter, something that became quite popular in Northern Europe as a subject in the 16th century. And here we have this represented in paint by a northern artist called Bernhard Strigel, and he's painting this around 1520. The subject is quite unusual. You don't find it represented around the world. It derives not from the Gospel accounts, but from a German account known as the Marienleben. And this was an account that was written in the 14th century, but as I said, really became far more prevalent in art history in the 16th century.
As you say, it's not a moment that's described in the Bible, but it's actually a wonderful painting to stand in for a number of events in Mary's life and the adult relationship between Mary and Jesus, which has only a few references in the Gospels, but many of them have an aspect of leave-taking. It's almost as if her whole life with him involves a series of moments when she has to let go. And one of the earliest is in the Gospel of Luke, where as a mere 12-year-old, they as a family go on a trip to Jerusalem, to the temple, and Jesus disappears, and Mary and Joseph search frantically for him and eventually find him sitting in the temple surrounded by the teachers of the law, all of these scholars and scribes. And he rather kind of admonishes them for being so stressed and worried and says, "Did you not know that I need to be about my Father's business," meaning his heavenly Father. So that's already one incident. Then later, when he begins his public ministry and his teaching and large crowds begin to gather around him, Mary and some of his other family members come to try and find him, and they can't even get near him because of his growing popularity. And a message is sent to him that his family want to see him, and he rather dismisses them and says, "Who are my mother and my brothers? All of these people who are now listening to me, these are my mother and brothers." So again, for Mary, that must have meant a strange sense of this beloved son of hers being at a distance. And finally, there's an interesting rebuke which is recorded in John's Gospel at a wedding ceremony in Cana, when she goes to him with a request that he supply wine because the wine's run out. And his initial response is to use a very curious Greek phrase which means literally, "What is that to you and to me?" Which means, what have we got to do with each other in this? Why is this my business? In fact, he does indeed go on and perform the miracle. But to hear those words on his lips in relation to his mother creates quite a shock when you hear or read it. So in all these ways, Mary's having to be prepared for the moment when she must let go once and for all. So there's a deep poignancy to this moment because although it's a leave-taking, Mary's instinct is to do everything that's the opposite of taking leave. So she leans into him and embraces him with her arms.
Yes, I think what the artist is doing here is really trying to evoke a kind of empathy in the beholder, to imagine this moment of leaving your child.
And of course, the final and most painful leave-taking of all is still to come, and that's the actual execution of her son on the cross. And that's what we're looking at in our next film.